Oh, howdy y'all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile 1 discussion. Sometimes Granny Geek Games post really important news updates to their website, but sometimes they also post something that's just a little bit of fun. Today, we're going to be talking through the Mirage League statistics that they posted today. Now, I'm saying today because I'm recording this just a few hours after the post came out, but it might end up delaying it a little bit because I've just launched another video in the interim as well, something that had to be put up really urgently related to Orbs of Annulment trade. I'll put a link to that down in the description below. Only relevant if you're a Trade League player. If you're an SSF player, it's a complete irrelevant video. That out of the way, let's talk about these Mirage League statistics, but if you're expecting important news, you've clicked the wrong video. Go have a look at my video from the other day about patch 3.28.0c. You might find that's more interesting. Today, we're just looking at NIFNAF and trivia information, but it is really interesting stuff. So firstly, Granny Geek Games opened by talking about how popular each particular wish is. Now, this is not an exhausting list of every single wish that's available, but there's a number of wishes that get taken very often, and there's a number that get skipped very often. And it's interesting that the absolute most popular wish to take is the wish for Rust. This is the one that currently allows you to fight Radahn of the Afarud at the time that you destroy the Astral Chain. However, this is all data from week 1 of Mirage League, and during week 1 of Mirage League, which is prior to patch 3.28.0c, during that period, this wish did something slightly different. What it did was it caused the map boss or bosses to each be accompanied by a copy of Radahn of the Afarud. So you would end up encountering one of him if it was just a normal map, but in certain situations, you could encounter many copies of him. That's been changed since then. It's now more common than it used to be, but at the same time, it is also less explosive than it used to be to get this wish. That said, the playbase consider this to be one of the best, 61.2%, and I know I absolutely always take this when it's offered. I don't think I've had even a single scenario where I've picked anything else over it, although I could imagine some where you might end up picking something else. The wish for fishes is next, and this has been picked 60.58% of the time. Claim a fishing rod. A lot of people want a self-farmed fishing rod just as a silly little trophy to have. Of course, there are no uses for a fishing rod in game. If I told you about the uses that existed, I would end up being muted. Therefore, I'm not going to talk about those. Fishing rods are just fun. They're a little bit of a trophy, they're a silly thing, and you definitely shouldn't be worried about getting one. After that, we have the wish for Terror. Breaking the Astral Chain in the Mirage area will spawn a Pinnacle Atlas boss from the Feared. I'm quite interested to see that this is something like 50%. I would have felt there'd be a number of people who get this as an option and immediately think, you know what, I am just not yet up to taking on the Shaper or the Incarnation of Dread or whichever one it ends up being. And particularly Cyrus can be really, really obnoxious if you encounter him with map mods, because you don't normally encounter him with map mods anywhere except in the actual Feared encounter. So I'm quite surprised that this one is as popular as it is. It's okay drops wise, but I feel like in softcore people might just go, you know what, I want to just test where I'm at the moment. If you're not yet at the point that you feel confident that you can defeat the Feared, you might be thinking, this is a chance to just test myself and do something a bit different. Also, previously, the Wish for Terror used to work differently as well. Just like when we were talking about the Wish for Rust, it used to be that it would be attached to killing a map boss, and also potentially you'd kill more than one map boss. Now, that's no longer the case. The Wish for Providence is one of the best of them, and this one has been taken just under half the time. The Nameless Seer will appear on breaking the Astral Chain. Now, there are two main reasons you want this. Firstly, the Nameless Seer will allow you to pick from about 12 different unique items. So you can pick something that might be good, it probably won't be, but at least you'll have a chance of something good. But more interestingly, perhaps, you can scry a map. And this is something that might even be the easiest way to unlock a scry that's important to you. So that's being taken about 50% of the time. After this, we have the Wish for Eminence. This one I'm surprised is only being taken 4 times in 9. This one feels like it's one of the very best of them, and that's because breaking the Astral Chain will award an additional unique jewel. There are just not many bad unique jewels, so I'm surprised that this is not quite a bit higher than it is. Also, the best of the unique jewels and the worst of the unique jewels, they're roughly equal in rarity to each other as well. Wish for Glyphs is the most popular of the common ones, or at least maybe uncommon in this case. Portal Scrolls and Wisdom Scrolls found in the Mirage area will instead drop as other currencies. I will definitely take anything higher than this on the list over it, but this is one that I do occasionally look for. And then we have the Wish for Wealth. I don't take this one very often. 100% more currency found in the Mirage area. It's something. I will take it if there's nothing genuinely good, but usually I'll pick something else because whilst you are getting a bit more currency from regular drops, I don't really go into the Mirages so much for the currency. I go in there for the other rewards mostly. Breaking the Astral Chain in the Mirage area will award a cache of currency. This one's being taken more than a third of the time. I definitely take this less than a third of the time. I've been quite disappointed with these caches. And then we have the Wish for Reflection. This one is probably quite rare, and I'm surprised that it's only a third of the time. I know a lot of people have a fairly bad experience with the Reflecting Mist RNG events, but it's been my experience that about 1 in 20 RNG Reflecting Mist will drop a piece of jewelry that is really sellable. And that's been my experience for a while. I know I've had something that I sold. I'm trying to think how much I sold it for. I think it was 777 Chaos that I got from one of these. As well as that, there's all of the things like the Dusk Ring, the Penumbra Ring that people can't get any other way. And of course, you can get the itemized Reflecting Mist as well. Based on all of that, I'm surprised the Wish for Reflection isn't more than 50% of the time that it's being picked. It's free loot. There are 3 win conditions for it. You could get one of the Calandra exclusive jewelry pieces, you get an itemized Reflecting Mist, or you could get something that just has a really good combination of stats on it. All of these are plausible, and yeah, I would take this every time unless I had something extraordinary over it. I would take Wish for Rust over it, but not much else. In any case, it's a pretty rare wish. I have not had this one yet. And then we have the Wish for Craftsmanship. I believe this only shows in the campaign, and it gives you a 5-linked body armor. This is surprisingly not being taken as often as I would have expected. I would have thought that when people see this, most of the time, you're at the point where a 5-link is either definitely an upgrade, or at the very least, it's got a good chance of being one. After this, we move on to some of the things that talk about player selection of areas that they're interested in running. So, where are the most commonly generated Mirages? Something really interesting. You will notice that these are not the first zones in Act 1. This didn't really surprise me because I think it's the case that a lot of the Path of Exile player base think there's an enormous amount of people that start new characters. Whereas actually, I think most of the people who play in any given league, most of them these days are veteran players. Most of them have gotten all the way up to the end game in the past, and as a result, they don't spend all that much time in Act 1, but when they do get to end game, they can run a lot of maps. And there's certainly new players, I just don't think they're a big percentage of the player base. So in week 1, we had roughly 1 in 15, slightly more of the maps that were opened were on dunes, roughly 1 in 20, slightly more, were City Square, and then we have 3 in 80, which is about 1 in 27, were Jungle Valley, and also about 1 in 27 were Haunted Mansion. Then next down is Strand at 1 in 40. Interestingly, Strand is the first of these maps that I wouldn't really pick in this league. And that's not to say that Strand is a terrible map normally. Honestly, I am personally burnt out on Strand, but that's another issue. Strand is a reasonably solid map most of the time, but in this league, it covers a large floor space. And I think that's quite a bad thing in this league, because when Varashta spawns, you want her to reflect as much of the map as possible, not so much because you want the reflected area to be huge or take a long time to navigate, but because you want it to pick up as many of the points of interest in the map as plausible. And that's why Haunted Mansion is so popular. Yes, there is a cool hideout that's available in Haunted Mansion, but the main reason is just that it's so compact that when Varashta spawns there, she is going to end up blowing out her area, her Mirage area, into quite a large percentage of the map, which means that some of the little points of interest that you don't really care that much about reflecting, like a Smuggler's Cache, they're going to get reflected, and you are happy to see them reflected. On the flip side, Dunes is something that I think is the best of the Strand-like maps, even though I still would be a little bit more hesitant to running Dunes this league than most. It's still a very solid one, and it doesn't quite sprawl as much as Strand does, or as much as Beach does. Anyways, 1 in 40 of you are opening Strands, 1 in 50 of you are opening Beaches, and then Defile Cathedral comes next, about 1 in 56, Mesa, about 1 in 70, Silo, about 1 in 88, and then Atoll, about 1 in 103. And that rounds out the top 10 maps that are being run, and exactly 0 of these zones are in Act 1. After this, we have the Vault opening rates. So this is when you complete an Astrolabe start to finish, you'll gain access to one of the memory vaults. The Scholar's Vault, which is the southwest quadrant of the Atlas, which is the one that is in the sort of general area of the Eldritch Voidstone, this is by far the most popular. Here, 3 in 7 of you that are opening up a vault, it's going to end up being a Scholar's Vault. This is almost twice as many as are running the Northeast. If you're running in the Scholar's Vault, Jungle Valley, Haunted Mansion, and Mesa are the top 3 maps, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bog is reasonably close to that as well. Bog is just very similar to a lot of these. Honestly, Haunted Mansion and Bog are pretty interchangeable in a lot of strategies because they both have the same sort of behavior where they're just quite compact, and as a result, the reflection can sprawl to more of it. After this, the Zealous Vault, 22.9%. This is the northeast, so this is the quadrant that includes the Shaper and Elder's Voidstone, and City Square, Defiled Cathedral, and Castle Ruins, surprisingly there. Castle Ruins is a map I am not a fan of at all, but that everyone's going to pick their own choices there. I feel like it's the wrong combination of sprawling a long way, but also being hard to navigate. Where something like Strand, it sprawls a lot, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad, but also it's very easy to navigate. Castle Ruins is just this awkward one, and it's got a boss that's surprisingly rippy. It's very easy from a standpoint of if everything goes right, the boss is really easy, but that's a boss that's very dangerous in conjunction with a couple of map mods that normally aren't dangerous. Most notably, the Flicker Strike that it's got. That's something that can really catch you off guard if you're playing anything remotely glass cannon. Archon's Vault is next in the southeast. Dunes, Silo, and Promenade, some very good maps there. And this is just under 1 in 5 of the vaults that are being opened. And then we have the Machinist Vault in the northwest, which has Strand, Beach, and Atoll, so 3 popular maps, but 3 that I don't think fit very well in this league. But 15.23% of vaults that are opened are this one. Next we have the coins that allow you to imbue a gem. Interestingly, there must be a lot of coins of skill sitting around in the Trade League economy at the moment unused, because I feel like people aren't choosing their wishes based upon which offerings of coins they're going to be able to chase. I feel they're choosing based upon what the wish is directly offering you. So for instance, you see a wish for Rust, you don't actually know or care which of the coins you can chase in that area. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe some of you are valuing which of the 3 different choices you can pursue a little bit more. Anyways, Coin for Power is overwhelmingly the most popular to use, and then Coin of Skill and Coin of Knowledge are noticeably less so. So I feel like there must be quite a number of unused Coins of Skill floating around in trade, and also with the new changes that were made in 3.28.0c, there's probably even more of them going around now because that added in 3 wishes that people are always going to take when they're offered. Finally, we have probably the most interesting thing here though. This is player win rates against bosses. Now, Grinding Games have a very, very, very important caveat on this. Something that they talk about a little bit here, they use slightly different wordings in this, but overwhelmingly, the vast majority of attempts against bosses are made by very, very experienced players, people who know that fight really, really, really well. So you'll see this where they talk about here that, as a side note, if you failed a few attempts at these bosses, don't be disheartened by these stats. You're not a terrible player because you failed your first 5 attempts at the Searing Exarch and then downed it on the 6th. What's happening here is that there are a very small number of players that have so much experience with the Exarch and have got a character that's so perfectly attuned to defeating the Exarch that they can go in 500 times and win every single one of those 500 times. Not only can they do that, but they are doing it. Because especially in the world of asynchronous trade, it is very, very fast to collect a whole bunch of invitations for any of the bosses. And that's true whether it's a boss invite that's traded through a traditional currency exchange, such as the Black Barrier for Sarash, or whether it's one of the ones that is traded through the newer version of asynchronous trade, which is the case for the Exarch and the Eater. So these stats are very strongly influenced by that small minority of players that run the bosses over and over and over again. Players with fewer attempts tend to have not such a high win rate. For example, the median player in terms of win rate with 5 to 9 attempts at the Searing Exarch has an 83.3% win rate. So that means 5 wins and 1 loss out of 6 attempts, whereas players that have over 100 attempts have a win rate of 99.5%. So yes, something that's very significant there. But what you see here is that the Searing Exarch is definitely taking a lot of people off guard on their first attempts. Not necessarily catching the veteran players, but I do feel this is somewhere where new players get to the Searing Exarch and feel, wow, this is way harder than anything I've fought before. And whilst they're able to get the Eater of Worlds down, maybe dying a couple of times, the Searing Exarch, they might end up losing all 6 portals. Unless you've got a lot of DPS, you have to then execute the Bullet Hell phase pretty well. And whilst there are some sorts of character defenses that will line up really well against that Bullet Hell phase, if you don't have those defenses, you're going to have a bad time with it. A lot of veteran players have actually learned if you're really struggling with the Exarch, what you want to do is log out when the bullet hell starts, come back in, and then just wait until all of the bullet hells have finished, and then go and engage the boss again. That's something that you can do. It's kind of cheesy, but it works. But that's something veterans know to do, and it's something that rookie players don't yet know how to do. And also, veteran players are more likely to be able to recognize some of the character archetypes that stand up really badly against the Exarch. So, for instance, if you're playing a minion build, you're going to have a bad time on the Searing Exarch unless you know exactly what you're doing. Likewise, ballista builds have a lot of trouble with the Searing Exarch too, because whilst you can place a totem at long range in order to confuse the Exarch, you can't do that with ballistae. Ballistae always go at your feet, and they won't dodge those explosions. And if you're standing next to one of them and it gets tagged, guess who else gets tagged? That's right, you. Anyways, that's a bunch of interesting stats about fights in the Mirage League. I'm going to leave it there. May your Val orbs have interesting results, and please don't trade for anything that is listed in Orbs of Annulment.